Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this special Photoshop Elements project, we're going to be doing this effect where somebody looks like they are jumping into a picture. Now it's fairly straightforward. It just takes a few kind of visual tricks to make this work. We'll be working from this original image here. Now the basic approach is that we remove the girl from the image. That then gives us a clean background. We'll have to be doing some clone stamp stuff in there. We then resize the background into this position. We then put the girl back into the picture again. And of course we put in a nice little gradient background. So the steps are fairly straightforward. There are a couple of different ways of doing that background. I'll show you those two ways in case you're curious. But straightforward, but it takes attention to details to make this work out properly. Okay, let's go ahead and start work on this. We'll start here with the clean image. And I'll just zoom in just one more notch here, I think. There we go. Now there are several steps again to do this. The most important step though is that we need to remove the girl from the background. And you can do that by making a careful selection around the girl and then making a mask out of that selection so that she's simply masked out. Let me just show you that again on our example. You can see right here, I haven't actually cut the girl out of the picture. She's just been masked out of that picture. So we need to make a selection and make a layer mask from that selection. Okay, now to make the selection, you can use any tool that you like. I'll use my personal favorite tool, which is the polygonal lasso tool. And I'll just start down here and just do part of this foot. Now, most of this I'll do off camera so that you don't have to sit here and watch me going in and doing all kinds of selections. But I'll do the selection and I'll get it started here, then I'll do the selection off camera. I'll bring the video back up again and then we'll convert that selection into a mask. So I'll be using the polygonal lasso tool. Now the reason I like this one is it's fairly easy to use. You click and then you can drag to your next point and click, find your next point, click, find your next point, click, and so forth. Come back to the beginning. There we go. And that gives you your closed selection, just like that. The nice thing about this is it's very controllable. You can take your time making each one of those clicks. Now the trick to doing curved surfaces is you need to zoom in close and then do fairly short segments to make that work out, just little short segments. Now I have this set on new selection. Anti-aliasing, this just smooths out the edges, and zero feathering. I don't want to have any soft edge on this, so zero feathering. And again on this, zooming in is going to make it easier for this technique. I'll do a little bit around here, and again then I will pause the video. So this is what I'll be doing. I'll be coming in here. You can see there's kind of like a soft edge right in there. I'll be coming in right into the middle of that soft edge. That's kind of my target. And then just doing just little short selections like that. Like there's one there, there's one, there's one, there's one. So there's little short segments, and that will then let me come in and make the selection easily using this particular tool. Now again, lots of tools that you could use, lots of ways of doing the selection. This just happens to be my personal favorite. You could, if you wanted to, do a quick mask mode and go right into making your mask directly. You could use any one of the other tools. Background eraser tool sometimes works if it's a real distinct contrast between the foreground and the background. But for me, this just happens to work out well. So I'll go ahead and I will finish this outline like this. And once I have the outline finished, then I'll bring this back up again. Now, one thing about using the polygonal lasso tool is you don't want to click too quickly. I'm just clicking, shortly, taking a breath between each click. If you click too fast, like that, what happens is it takes where you double click and it connects that back with your beginning point, and then it closes off the selection. If you're not done selecting, that's going to be a problem. So make sure you take your time to make that careful selection. Okay, I'll go ahead, pause the video now. I'll make that selection around the girl's figure. As soon as the selection is made, I'll then bring the video back up again. And there we go. There is the girl nicely selected out of the image. Now we want to make a mask out of this. I'm going to take this background, just copy it to a new background. There we go. So I have a new copy of that. We're now going to add a layer mask. It's the button right there. Click on layer mask and notice how it automatically takes that selection and makes the selection into your layer mask. Now if I hide the background, you'll see that we have now removed the girl from the background. Now the reason why I'm doing this as a layer mask is that I can go back and I can fine tune this later on. I can come here, I can check edges and so forth if I need to, and make sure that this is exactly perfect. The way you do that is you click on the layer mask. Notice the cyan outline right there, the light blue outline. It means that the layer mask is selected. If I click over here, double click actually, the picture is selected. If I double click here, the mask is selected. So there we go, like that. Now if you're on the mask, if you paint in black, it hides. If you paint in white, it shows. So by choosing your paint color and just using a paintbrush, you can paint onto the mask layer here and actually adjust the mask to fine-tune your edges. Okay, so there's a girl separated out from the background. Now we need to do a copy of this background. There we go. I'm doing that because I'm going to be hiding and keeping this original background untouched. Just in case things get messed up, I can always go back to that background. On this one, we want to come in here and clean the girl out. The reason for that is that we're going to be changing the size of this background. If I don't clean the girl out, we'll be seeing the changed size girl in behind this girl. I can demonstrate that quickly. Let's just bring her back up again. And I'll zoom out just a little bit here. There we go, get the whole picture in the frame like that. Now if we resize this image, you can see what happens. All of a sudden we have two girls showing. So I can't come in here and move this around, resize it without having that duplication of that second figure. So we need to come in here on this background layer and give us a clean background. Create a clean background by clone stamping the girl out of this image. Luckily, it doesn't have to be perfect because people will be paying attention to the girl and not the background. Do a good job, doesn't need to be a perfect job. So I'll zoom in here. We'll start up here with this top leg, and I'll just grab the clone stamp tool. Now on this image, I'm going to bring my size up to about 50. There we go, soft edge, which will help it blend in better. That looks pretty good. Now with the clone stamp tool, go over to the left-hand side here, hold the Alt key down, click, and you're going to copy from that point. Now notice that the gradient here is kind of a horizontal gradient, so I want to copy directly to the side. So I'll copy from that, and then I'll just paste it where you can see actually as it's pasting in, you can see that. So we'll just work up and get rid of the foot and a little more for that piece. There we go. Okay, right down here, same thing, just copy it over to the side. I'm just going right to the right hand side here to try to keep things even. And we'll just keep up this process until we paint out the girl. Maybe go back and forth a little bit here because of the sky. A little bit of clouds in there. I'll stop above the horizon line And we'll do that one a little more carefully here. Now on this leg, because the sky is darker towards the top, lighter towards the bottom, I can't copy from here and clone down here. It's going to look funny. You'll be able to see that. So I have to copy left and right. So it'll take a couple of passes to do this. So I'll take this as far as I can. And then when I begin seeing the image again, there it is, I'll just back out and grab again and begin coming in again. Then once I see the image showing up like that, lets me know I have to go back out and do another grab. Okay, there we go. The girl has been removed from the sky, nice and clean. We now can come in and work on the area with the horizon. Now this is a little trickier. So I'm going to zoom in a bit on this one. And this will take a little bit of additional work. I'm going to carefully come in here and do this in just little bits. And then we'll have to go back in and do some additional cleanup. Let's go from this. I'm going to get rid of that boat while I'm at it. There we go. Now, the problem with the horizon line is that it's an easy to see section, so it takes a little more work to get that to disappear. The water's pretty easy, the sky was pretty easy, but the horizon line there is a little bit trickier. And then we'll also be getting some duplication happening on there. We'll need to make sure we hide that duplication as well. Okay, just about there. You see we have this hill, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to make my brush size smaller. Just bring this down to half that, so I'll bring it down to 25. Then I can grab some stuff in between here and come in and just kind of do the hill a little bit. And if you're careful with this, you can make it look pretty good. Again, the nice thing about this is that people are not going to be focusing on the horizon. They're going to be looking at the girl in the foreground. So it gives us a little bit of leeway on that. Okay, that looks pretty good. I don't think, oh, actually there's a little repeating thing happening down there. I'm just going to grab a bit of this and come in and hide some of that. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let's now come down to the next tricky area, which is the water line right here. The part of the water line is it's a diagonal, which just makes it a little more difficult to do. And then we have that duplicated white stuff in there. We'll just get rid of that. And same thing with the rocks. You want to make sure you keep things lined up properly. When we get down to here, this is just sand. This, I mean, the kind of rocky stuff is pretty easy to come in and actually hide that. Now we have our fingers showing right there. I'll leave those. We'll be putting the arm back on that same spot, so we'll be using those same fingers. And that will help us to blend in the picture at that point. But for this kind of clone stamp, it's really just a matter of taking your time, paying attention to details. Okay, looks pretty good. Again, I'm leaving those fingers there. We'll use those as a marker. The end of the shadow and the fingers are going to be our marker on this. Let's zoom out and see if this is looking okay. Yeah, you can't notice any problem in there on that skyline. It's so small, you can't see any of that. So there we go. There's our clean image. Now if we bring the picture of the girl back in again, there it is. There she's sitting right on top. Now, of course, she's just transparent and behind, but she's sitting on top of that clean background. So there's our clean background. So far, so good. We're getting very close now. The next thing we need to do is to come in and put in our gradient layer. This one's real easy. Just do a new layer. There it is. And grab the gradient tool and look at your gradients. There's a default here of black to white on the default set. That's all I want. And I'll go from the top, hold the shift key down so it drags a perfectly vertical line, and come down to the bottom somewhere. And that went the opposite direction. Let me see if we have reverse in there. That is. Let me just undo reverse. And let's check our thing. What I want to have the first one there, the linear gradient. Okay, so no reverse, linear gradient. And let's just try that again. Again, hold the shift key down, pull straight down. There's what we're looking for. So that gives it a gradient in there, in the background. Okay, now we can shift around the image. Now I'm going to resize it a little bit first. Just hold the shift key down and resize it a bit. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Let me just undo. Actually, let's just not put that in place. There we go. Make sure on the background layer, that's what I want. Hold the shift key down and I'll resize it a little bit. About like that. And let's rotate it just a bit, kind of like that. So we're just easing in towards the position we want this to be in. And let's put the girl on top. Looking pretty good. Now I want to push this picture into a perspective. So we'll do that on Image Transform. And you can do Distort or Perspective. Perspective is simply going to pull the, squeeze the top in like that. You can kind of squeeze it in and adjust it. It makes the top smaller. Or you can squeeze the sides in. Whatever you want. And that's looking pretty good. But putting a little bit of a perspective on there makes it look as if this is in a different plane. It's not just sitting flat on the picture. You want to have some kind of a distortion in there. A lot of these different tools will do that. You can use the skew or the distort or the perspective. In this one I did perspective and just did a couple that at the top, and then I did this side. It was a little bit of that perspective effect. Now we want to put that white border on this. But notice the girl's hand position right there. You can see there's the background image. I'm going to put her hand right at the end of that shadow that we had on there. And if we zoom in a bit on this, we can get that exactly right, just like that. So there's the arm. Here's the finger sticking out under the sand. So her positioning is now exact. Just zoom out a little bit. The last thing we have left to do is to put that white border on this. And we'll do that with a layer effect. That's up here, layer, layer style, style settings. I'm doing a stroke. Click on this to get the color selector and choose OK. So it's a white stroke. You can see there's the white stroke. You can put the stroke outside or inside on this. I'm going to put it inside. And then bring the size up until it's at a pleasing position. Just like that. Choose OK. And there we go. There is that real nice, easy to do shape. Now I mentioned that there's a different way of doing this that's a little less tricky, but it's not as good. The nice thing about this is I have the horizon has really been shifted. I have this definitely in a perspective. It looks really good. The last thing I wanted to do here is let's just put a drop shadow on this. It's kind of floating. Same thing, layer. Then get back up on my layer. There we go. Another layer style. Let's do a drop shadow. Change the lighting direction a little bit. Bring the size up and the distance. Just like that. And that lets it look as if this is just sitting above the background and then she's kind of jumping into the whole thing. Now another way to do this, I'll just do this real fast. I'm going to go up here to this layer again, grab my magic wand, click outside. That selects the outside area on that. And then I can invert that, select inverse, and that gives me the picture size. And if I come down here and make a new copy of my background, there we go. So I'm on this. Let's now do a layer mask on this copy. Let's hide that. And I'll pull that above. Now I didn't remove the girl from that one, which it kind of falls in behind anyway. It's just a different way, easier way to do this. Now notice that we have our perspectives in there. I did the perspective, of course, up here. In this case, I'm just looking at the picture as is, so I don't need to remove the girl from the picture because she's right behind. You can see it right there. She's just directly behind on that layer. So this is a little bit easier, and you don't have to do that clone stamp cleanup. It's not as good, but it's faster. And then I would simply do that same outline on that. But my preferred method, of course, is what we did here, where we can get that nice perspective in there, actually resize the background image, rotate it a little bit, and it gives it a much better effect. But there we go. That's how to do the girl jumping into a picture effect. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.